Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Dhamma of Peace series number 13. The power of effort and patience for peace. The full foundation of mindfulness eliminates craving and brings attainment of Nibbana. It consists of observing the body, feelings of experience, good and evil mind, and the observation of Dhamma phenomena. But one must observe with firm and penetrative mindfulness. This method is suitable for both experienced yogis and a beginner. Mahasi tradition always started with observing the body's rising and falling movement of the abdomen. Rising movement is due to air of in-breath. The gradual falling of the stomach is due to the escape of the air. This breath of air is called wind element. The wind element has the pushing and supporting qualities. One experientially understands the concept of rising and falling if one sees the rapid many movements while observing the rising and falling movements. Within the rising movement, there's many mini movements, or you may call it vibrations. And also within the falling movement from the beginning to the end, there are many small falling movements. And once a person experiences these things, you understand what rising is and what falling is. Rising and falling are simply word concept. In reality, they consist of many small mini movements that arises and pass away, arises and pass away, arises and pass away. One experiences it directly at a certain level of meditation, and at that moment one understands There is no such thing as rising or such thing as falling of the abdomen. Simply mini movements, wind elements. That is the understanding, or that is the wisdom, you can call it. One's going and coming to and fro, mouth opening and closing, and the hands and the legs bending and stretching, bending and stretching. Whenever you pick up something, you drop something. Whenever you walk, there's always the bending and stretching movements. And the body itself is bending and stretching. You bend down to pick up something, you stretch. To stand, you stretch. To sit in a upright posture. They are all movements, or you can call it, they are the manifestation of wind elements. But of course we say, oh, I'm going here. I came from this place. Oh, I picked up a loonie or a toonie on the street. This is how we look at it. But in an ultimate sense, they are all the manifestation of wind elements. And everything is the words that we put in, conceptual words that we put in to identify or describe wind element at a certain condition or situation. So reality is only wind element exists. Water element in a obvious, tangible way. It manifests as tears rolling down your eyes, sweating when it is hot, or nostril secretion. In other words, all the fluids that come out of the every pores and holes of your body is the manifestation of water element that is tangible. You can see, feel, and touch. But in reality, water element is simply a cohesion and dispersion. Okay. An example, water. When it's below 0 degree, it becomes ice, solid. That is cohesion, the bonding tighter. And when the water at over the boiling point, it becomes gas. It disperses. So that quality, cohesion and dispersion, is the water element. You cannot feel the cohesion. You cannot touch the expansion. But you can, of course, feel, see, and touch the fluidity, such as eardrops, nasal congestion, secretion, and so on. That is water element. And that one too, one can observe. That is the mindfulness of the body, rupa, nupassana, wind element, water element, and also temperature. One can always sense hot or cold or warm. The body can always sense the surrounding, temperature of the surrounding, temperature of the object one's touch. That temperature is called fire element, not the real fire, but it's a temperature. That is also the one of the quality of materiality, rupa. When one swallows foods, you can experience, I'm trying to pick up something little subtle. When one swallows food, you can experience the food flowing down smoothly or sometimes roughly. That is materiality, rupa, the hardness and softness. Okay, of course, we can say you pick up a stone, feel it, it's hard, the hardness. Pick up a fur, softness, that materiality that we simply know. But I like to point out that when you swallow the food, that hardness and softness is very subtle. If you're observing it, you can experience it. That's the earth element. So, earth, wind, fire, and water. Hardness, softness, motion, vibration, cold and hot, cohesion and expansion. These four elements are called the four great elements. They are the four main qualities of rupa, materiality. They are obvious, easy to experience. That's why in the Mahasi tradition, one focuses first and foremost to the body, or rupa nupassana, because this pure vipassana can be practiced by experienced yogi and someone who has never meditated before. Both can practice this, especially for the beginners who never had any experience to meditation. This is very easy to do, focusing on the mindfulness of the body, materiality. Among the four elements, one experiences the wind element most. As all internal and external body parts are always moving. See, among the four, wind is the most obvious one for anyone because everything is moving, one is moving. And outer materials are also moving. The wind touching you, the sun ray hits you. You are contacting with many materials. So, movement is the most common element that one experiences. That's why we focus on the movement of the abdomen, rising movement and falling movement. Some people who are used to watching in-breath and out-breath, they don't quite like it. But here is not make it for one to like or not to like. It is something strict, simple, and easy, especially for beginners, especially for people who have no experience. That's why we use mindfulness of the body first and foremost, and the wind element, the most obvious and common element one can observe. All the forms, size, shape, and color are concept. Only the movement is reality. At that moment, which means when you're observing that movement, motion, or vibration, okay, one does not think. If you're observing it precisely, you're walking, and if you're observing lifting, pushing, dropping precisely, you don't think, oh, I'm walking gracefully, or I'm walking awkwardly, oh, I'm walking with my hunchback and a bow legs. You don't think these things at all if you are observing the movement precisely. If not, automatically the mind goes there. Oh, people will think I'm a hunchback, and so on. That means there is no likes or dislike involved in the movement, because you simply knows movement as movement. So you don't have to like it, you don't have to dislike it. You have a balanced attitude towards the movement. And also one knows the nature of the movement with certainty. You know movement as movement. It is not imagining. It is not second-hand news. It is not that you read in a book. And as you know movement as movement, and you are not identifying with anything to that movement, but only its reality, the motion, vibration, at that particular moment, there is no I, there is no self. In other words, at that moment, I or self disappear. That is the direct consequences of the precise mindfulness, or the effect of the direct, precise mindfulness. We label with the word concept. Okay. Label. Some people don't like it, but the instruction is one must label with the word concept, because it helps you to know the ultimate reality. Before it was just lifting of the foot, and then the foot disappear and lifting, and then even lifting become small little mini lifting movements. That is how one understands there is no such thing as lifting, because you have the process of understanding the lifting of the leg to the mini lifting movement, right under your eyes, right under your nose. That's one way, one reason the word concept helps you to understand the ultimate reality. Let's say one starts observing an object without labeling. Try it. You will find the mind wanders away quite frequently, more frequently than observing with labeling. Of course, for a beginner, labeling helps to focus on the process of one's observation. You don't have to use a label forever. One can drop the labeling when one becomes mature in the practice. If you want to gauge in terms of insight, when you reach the insight of equanimity, one can drop labeling. You don't need it anymore. But along the way, it helps you to understand the ultimate reality. Sometimes you go back and forth, labeling, and then suddenly without labeling. And then the thoughts come in a lot, so you just go back to the labeling and back and forth. These are in transition in the middle. Many stages. One can apply it suitably. The most essential thing is to overwhelm thinking and wandering mind. Okay, we just talked about the rupa materiality. Now we'll be talking about nama mentality. Thinking and wandering mind, one must overcome. When you say thinking, wandering, that is the unmindful mind. And the second most is to observe the actions of our daily lives without missing, if possible, in a retreat. These tasks cannot be successful without ardent effort. If you are doing half-heartedly, you won't. You must put ardent effort. Effort, in Pali, viriya, is one of the 5 controlling mental faculties. Even though we say ardent effort, if you apply excessively, you will become restless and agitated. And if you don't apply enough effort, your mind will be wandering away. It is essential to make a steady and firm effort if a yogi desires a good result. If one invests rightly, correctly, in other words, the balance amount, in the effort as a forerunner. Okay. Effort must be the forerunner in the task that you are doing. One will succeed in the practicing of Buddha Dhamma. If one has excessive concentration, excess concentration, laziness and sleepiness will arise. These are the little pitfalls. If one has very clever mind, one's become tricky and rationalizes everything according to one's desire. So everything must be balanced. Mindfulness, concentration, intelligence, effort. Suppose one applies right action. Okay? Right action is karma, but you are applying right now, here and now. One applying right action, intelligence and effort. You are applying it. But if one doesn't have a past good karma, the effort will not produce a good result as possible. That's the reason we often see many yogis doing the same meditation with similar technique and effort, let's say, for the state of discussion. Apply this, use the same technique, apply the same amount of effort, meditating, but achieve different result. Some are very successful, some are mediocre, some do not at all. Some succeed more, some succeed less. Some fail because the people who fail doesn't have the past good karma, parami, or past good karma. People who succeed quickly have a past parami or past good karma. So that's another factor. All other things being equal at the present moment, the degree of the past parami can produce different results. It is also important to be able to overcome pain from the physical source. If one does not experience pain, sitting for an hour, let's say we are supposed to sit for 1 hour and walk 1 hour, sit 1 hour. But some yogis, you sit 1 hour, there's no pain. For those people, you may sit for 2-3 hours and walk for half an hour or an hour to experience the pain. Of course, you don't purposely do it, but the teacher will skillfully guide you. But as this is an online teaching, I give you straight out the answer. If you don't experience pain for an hour, sit for 2. If not, sit for 3 and walk for 1 hour. Because pain is the dukkha vedana, unpleasant feeling. And to overcome the unpleasant feeling, you must understand it first. To be able to understand the unpleasant feeling, you must experience it. For that reason, we need unpleasant feeling to understand and to overcome. The concept of I or a self disappears when one observes the object firmly and thoroughly. We have already mentioned at the beginning of this talk how it disappears. If you are precisely on the object, penetratively and thoroughly, at that moment there's no I or self. At that moment, there's no craving for the object, whatever object it is, because of the clarity of knowing its true nature. No craving, lack of craving is the cause, and the elimination of suffering is the effect. If you have no craving, there will be no suffering. Let's use the Pali word atta. In English, self or soul is the wrong view. Or you can say the wrong knowing. Or you can say the wrong seeing, whichever one you like. Wrong view, wrong knowing, wrong seeing. It is self or a soul. Yes. It is the unwholesome mind with ego, which is full of mental defilements. Once you have a wrong view, there's ego exists. With that ego, there's a lot of mental defilements follow. Once one experiences ultimate reality, Paramattha, then one gains wisdom. Wisdom is pinya. At that moment, there's no delusion, there's no ignorance of the nature of self, and there's no suffering. It's the wisdom that eliminates it, not the willpower or concentration power. Volitional activities, sankhara, they stop when the ignorance is dispelled. Without I, there's no volitional activities. There be only a functional activities. And when there is no ignorance, there is no more rebirth. In other words, no more next life. And that is attained at the Arahata mega stage, the fourth noble person. So, Vipassana wisdom will let one understand the mind and body in their true nature. That's what it does. And the path and fruition wisdom understand the Four Noble Truths. And when you truly understand the Four Noble Truths with path wisdom, all the mental defilements are eliminated and attain Nibbana. May all of you be able to practice mindfulness meditation with ardent effort, patience and tolerance, and attain peace as soon as possible. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much.